And that was always my pitch. Okay, amazing. So you work with CEA. Do you work with the founder? No. Okay, so you work with an employee? Yes. So that employee works from 9 till 5? Yes. So if you have a campaign coming up in the weekend, are they providing you with, with help? No, I will work 24 hours for you. I work with the exact same brands. Well, I told them I work with the exact same brands, but in my head, I will work with the exact same brands as those clients. And now I do. Even to a component that, we work with Google, we work with the main companies out there. We are not the biggest agency out there when it comes to employees, but we are when it comes to the creators and the brand dudes.
Welcome to How I Made It in Marketing from Marketing Sherpa. We scour pitches from hundreds of creative leaders and uncover specific examples, not just trending ideas or buzzword-laden schmaltz, real-world examples to help you transform yourself as a marketer. Now, here's your host, the Senior Director of Content and Marketing at Marketing Sherpa, Daniel Burstein, to tell you about today's guest.
As an entrepreneur, as a marketer, the world is conspiring to grab your attention and distract you. For example, when I started in this career, there were really only a few channels you could go to. There's newspaper, TV, radio, direct, maybe outdoors. Now, that number has exploded. Just one example of how many things you could possibly do with your business and your campaigns and your budget and your time. But to find success, my next guest says, focus on one thing. Here to share the story behind that lesson, along with many more lesson-filled stories, is Gidon Roitveil, co-founder of Delca Talents. Thanks for joining me, Gidon.
Thank you so much, Daniel. I appreciate it.
So I want to jump into your lessons and stories, but I want the audience first to understand who I'm talking to. Gidon's background: he's been a sales coach and team captain at the sales unit, a head of education of Tamid Group. But for the past 5 years, he's been at Delca Talents, which he co-founded. Delca Talents is a multi-million-dollar agency, and Gidon manages a team of 25. So give us a sense, Gidon, what is your day like as a co-founder?
That's a good question. I always said that my lifestyle is I wanted to start a business that can afford me a certain lifestyle. And my lifestyle is really being independent from any place. So I travel a lot. I try to spend like 2 months at every place, making sure that the time zone is right. Because we work with a lot of clients in China and the US. There's never a perfect time zone. But I wake up early, I go to the gym, and depending on the time zone I'm in, if it's closer to the US, the time zone, then I'm actually working from the beginning and then going in the evening to the gym. But if I'm in a time zone such as the European time zone, I'm mostly working out in the morning. So that's how I start the day. A little bit of meditation, 10 to 15 minutes, seeing of my family who called me because I spent so much time away from my family. So it's important. I'm a family guy. And then I start working for 2-3 hours. That's it, 2-3 hours, but really, really focused. And then I'm going for a walk for like an hour and then back to work. Well, and I'm always making sure I have some time that I also work from coffee shops, because I'm not a guy that can spend all time in-house working. I always need to meet new people as well. It's part of the lifestyle. I love meeting new people. I love socializing. I love seeing other entrepreneurs working from coffee shops. So that's what I like to do, looking at and talking to other people as well, asking what they do.
Well, let's talk a bit about your lifestyle, because your first lesson was you always have to separate work from your personal life. So what does that mean? How did you learn that?
Well, business is ups and downs. Like one day I wake up, I think I'm going to become a billionaire. The other day I'm like, this is it. The business is done. So especially because I work with my best friend that I know since 10 years old. That's my co-founder. It's, your relationship always needs to be, at the same space. Like it needs to be aligned. But when it comes to business, it's such ups and downs. You can lose a client, you can lose a creator, you can win a creator, you can win a client. It's really important to detach the business world from your personal world, because especially when it comes to happiness, you're going to be dependent on something to be happy. That's not happiness by definition. So it's really important to separate it in any way possible. Even if I wouldn't do business with my best friend, I should have separated it. And it's tough, especially in the US where everything is business. Yeah, what do you do is one of the first questions that you're asked. It's a dangerous question. I'm from the Netherlands, from a small town. People don't care what you're doing, which is also an extreme form, right? But I think the balance, the motivation, the ambition that I have together that I'm come from a country that business is not that important really helped me with that mentality.
Okay, well, let's dive into this because are there any changes you've had to make in your personal life to work with creative people? Because, for example, when I interviewed Carlos Cantu, the CMO of FreePick on How I Made It Marketing, one of his lessons was embrace discomfort to harness creativity. He told a story to me of a leader he worked with that said if he was going to aim to work with truly creative people that could drive meaningful innovations, he was going to have to be willing to hire people that would make him uncomfortable. So I've heard you described on other podcasts as like Ari Gold of Entourage. And Ari Gold is based on the super agent Ari Emanuel. And the whole show Entourage is based on Ari Emanuel. He's trying to balance his family. And he's got these very creative people he works with, like these big actors and actresses who are, creative people are known to be a little eccentric. And so I wonder for we all as marketers have to work with creative people. You're kind of in a special area if you want to just briefly explain how you have to work with creative people as an agent. How do you balance that?
That's such a good question. I think I'm in the most interesting market when it comes to that as possible, because I work with certain actors. Once you had actors, now it's influencers. It changed the whole scene. But at least an actor is there for a couple of years. They call influencers for a reason also hype. I managed one of the first influencer marketing houses called the Hype House. Why is it called the Hype House? Because it's a hype. It doesn't last for long. So you have to understand that, Daniel, I can manage a creative for 6 months and they're gone. I can manage a creative for 1 year and they're gone. So it's a really quick industry. And it's really my job to understand who are those creators that are there for the long term, for the long run. And in my industry, long run is 3 to 4 years. So I had to change everything. Like I came from a stable family that had like a normal average job to something that every few days I need to change my whole business. And that's how you win. You know how many agencies have come and have gone as well. So it's really, most of my employees are looking for new prospects, new creators rather than clients, because the right creators attract the right clients. So yeah, it's working with creative people. They love talking about their vision, what they are doing. And that's something awesome. I love working with passionate people. And I can tell you one thing, I'm working in one of the most passionate people, because as an actor, you just have to be the actor. But as an influencer, as a content creator, you need to be the videographer. You need to be the main actor. You need to be the script writer. So there's so many things that comes towards being a content creator and having a passion that I think it's one of the hardest industry to be in. That's why it's so tough to be there in the long run as well.
Well, let's take about that long run, because you said great things take time to grow. So how'd you learn this lesson?
From relationships on the female side, to be honest, because
well, that's what marketing is. It's relationships. It makes sense, yeah.
And especially business people, they think the more time and effort I put in something, the more it grows, and it's not always true. And not even on the business side, because with some clients, for example, one of the biggest clients I work with is ByteDance, the company behind TikTok, and they actually came to me. And the more I enforce a client to work with me, the less successful it will be. So I really understood that the right clients, they take time, but they will come to you. And the same thing is with girls. If you want to have the top woman out there, there's like 10 or 20 guys after her. So if you're not the guy that's going after her, you probably get there because you're more, hey, this guy also has options. He must be really interested, right? Because all the guys that are going after her, right, they want to quickly, they probably won't be with her because she wants the person that's, harder to get in that sense, less available. Because less available means most likely this guy is more interesting, has more on his plate. And that's the same thing that I learned with business. So I always try to understand how can a client come to me, and that takes time. So rather than working with 50 clients and creators at the same time, I understood, okay, why don't I work with 10 of the best clients, 10 of the best creators? The creators will come to you word of mouth, because if you work with smaller creators and you grow to bigger creators, they will talk to each other. And the same thing happens with clients. From working with ByteDance, was able to work with Tencent, able to work with Anchor, able to work with Temu, who are some of the largest companies from China. So it takes time, and I had to learn it the hard way, right? Especially when I started my business when I was 20. I got my success in my business when I was 23. So my mentality was like quick, but it doesn't work like that.
All right. So I like what you're saying and playing hard to get, but give us a specific tactic or two you do use to attract people, right? Because what you say is great. A lot of times we don't have enough patience. We see that in marketing. We like to use performance marketing. We like to see instant results. So we're going to change a campaign. There are other tactics like inbound marketing, content marketing that pull people in, but they do take longer. They can take years to start popping on SEO. One of the things you mentioned is you went from 10-hour days and 5 sales calls a day and only closing one to 2 calls a day and closing both clients most of the time. That's great. But I imagine it's not doing less sales calls. That is what did, or just being patient. So what's a tactic or two that attracted the companies to you?
Well, I learned a quote from Richard Branson. He said, if you think you can do it, but you don't know how to do it yet, say yes. And that's how I basically started my agency. I didn't know if I would start with the client side, get the brands first, or the creators first. And then I understood by managing small creators that a small deal, let's say worth of $1,000, is not less work than a big deal of $1 million. No, it's actually easier to close a big deal, which most people think right now, Gideon, what are you talking about? I will explain. Closing a small creator is more difficult to me. Why? Because they have a small mindset. They're small for a certain reason, unless they are just starting and they have the potential to grow a lot. But they're small for a reason. And I learned that the bigger creators take bigger risks. So for me, I understood after a few months in, why don't I reach out to the biggest creators out there? I thought that I'm already at a position that I can provide for them. And I believed in myself I could do it. And then I understood, wait, the bigger creators actually easier to close. And the bigger clients such as ByteDance is easier to close than a small company with a small marketing budget. Because the small company needs to put that small marketing budget really specific. So they need to get an ROI, a specific ROI on it. So I really understood if I can get a way to get to the biggest creators, the biggest clients, and everything I do in business needs to be on a higher scale, then I kind of win a lot of time. And I can focus more on the revenue of my business than keeping the retention of smaller companies. So you have a lot of those people on LinkedIn reaching out to me and to a lot of agencies. Hey, I can help you with ROI or getting new clients for your client or for your agency. It never works. LinkedIn never works on getting clients, and I had to learn it the hard way in most cases. So you have all those salespeople sending LinkedIn messages to marketing people, to agencies, to clients, but they close what? $2,000 to $3,000 or maybe $10,000 a month. No. If you want to get the big clients, they're most likely not through LinkedIn. They most likely need to find a way for them to come to you. And I found a funnel for my agency for the clients to come to me, and it changed my entire business.
So first of all, I hear you on all that friggin' LinkedIn spam I get all the time, but I can hear our listeners think in their head, like, of course I want to go after big clients, but big clients are hard because everybody wants to go after them. Everyone's going after the big influencers. Everyone's going after the big companies. So what you talk about funnel and you talk about setting it up, I don't want to ask you to give away all your secrets. That would be unfair.
Right.
But give the audience a specific, what is something you could have done to attract some of these big names to you?
Definitely. And by the way, Daniel, when I was at the university, I went to a private university and there came a lot of business people and they talked about their success. And I always went home and I was like, but they talk about their success and they had this grandfather or they had this friend that started this company and they were lucky, and I was trying to do the exact same thing as them and it never worked. So one thing that I never liked about going to this conference is people talking about themselves, people talking about their success. The only thing that I learned from them is that you need to find something that you love doing. And it's really important because you will spend a lot of times and hours on it. I found my passion early on. I love YouTube. I saw people creating content for them from their bedroom and earning money of it. This was my place. So for everyone listening to this podcast, first of all, you have to understand, what do you love doing? And you have to understand, what does it mean, big funnels? Like, what does it mean to work with the highest income people in your industry? An example, if you're dealing with jewelry, you need to find, and you want to be in that part, social media is a really big component of it. So you need to make sure to be in every niche. But in my area, I will tell you what it is in my area. I had to find a way that I would compete with the biggest agencies out there, including CEA and WME. But you have to understand, Daniel, I was living in Israel. I didn't have any client, any creator, any experience. I don't come from a rich family. I had to do everything by myself. And I already had a loan that I took in order to go to college for $40,000. I had no money. So I couldn't get an investment. And everyone right now wants to have an investment. I don't believe in it unless that you're in tech. But you have to understand, first of all, the industry I'm in. I'm a middleman. I'm an agency. You don't acquire any money. I love the agency model. I love it. If you're a real estate broker or if you're working with social media, I love the broker concept. So how does it work for my agency? I had to understand how I could get the biggest creators that are currently with CEA and WME. How did I do that? Content creators go so fast. It is a new market. They're not actors. Well, if you're good enough as an influencer, you might become an actor. So how could I attract them to my agency? Simple. Non-exclusivity. All those CEAs and WMEs, they wanted to have the creators, and the creators felt like they were an employee of the big company. I told them, listen, just make sure that you're with my agency. You're non-exclusive. You can still work with CAA. So if you're still going to get deals from them, I don't need any commission on their side. But you need to also be part of my agency. So if the clients go to your social media channels, they also have to understand that we are working together. And then if I provide you with deals, then we become exclusive. So if I'm actually able to provide you with long-term partnerships, let me first show the effort and time that I can do for you. And if that works well, then you're with me. And they're like, but how long does it take? Like, let's give it 2 months. During those 2 months, I worked my ass off to get clients. And luckily enough for me, I was also at the right time at the right place. And I tried a lot of things out before and I wasn't at the right place or at the right time. It was a great product. Luckily for me, one client responded. I made my first brand deal. And that creator asked, listen, now I made a brand deal for you. You made some money. Even if it was 40, 50K more on a 6 months basis, it's an extra income on top of the current agency that you're working with. Well, at some point, I was at a place that I could get and provide the same brand deals as the other agencies. And now I was the smaller agency managing the bigger creators, but the bigger creators felt more part of my company because now they were dealing with the founder and not with an employee. And that was always my pitch. Okay, amazing. So you work with CEA. Do you work with the founder? No. Okay, so you work with an employee? Yes. So that employee works from 9 to 5? Yes. So if you have a campaign coming up in the weekend, are they providing you with help? No, I will work 24 hours for you. I work with the exact same brands. Well, I told them I work with the exact same brands, but in my head, I will work with the exact same brands as those clients. And now I do. Even to a component that, we work with Google. We work with the main companies out there. We're not the biggest agency out there when it comes to employees, but we are when it comes to the creators and the brand deals. And I've seen a lot of big agencies gone as well or lose power, such as the previous agency that managed Mr. Beast, for example, because again, we didn't focus on one big creator. We focused on multiple big creators, and that's how we grew.
Yeah, I love what you did. And just so that everyone doesn't miss a marketing lesson, that one thing you did is you reduced the cost for them to say yes, right? And that cost could have been friction, could have been anxiety, but by saying we're going to go non-exclusive, you remove that reason to say no, you remove that cost.
Exactly. I had to find a way. If I was a creator, I was that age, right? Because I was exactly the age of the creator. What do I want? I want to work with someone that I look up to, that's my same age, understands the industry, understands on how to work with brands, and is part of my company, part of my influencer side. So I told the creator, I'm just part of you. I'm like literally you, part of your channel, but the only thing I do is reaching out for brands to your channel. And that's what I did. And they loved it. So I became their personal manager, although I was an agency.
Yeah. So this environment, you work in this environment we all work in, but especially what you work with influencers, talk about how fast moving it is. It seems like there's an overwhelming amount of things you could do. And you said one of the lessons you learned is focus on one thing. How'd you learn that?
Well, I saw other agencies focusing on merchandise, getting investments from $20 million, focusing on the merchandise part. But every creator wants upfront money. Merchandise takes a lot of time and effort. Most creators don't have enough loyal audience in order to sell it to. Every creator wants an upfront fixed brand deal. So let's say Coca-Cola comes to me and I want to work with a creator. There's an X amount of money they get. That's what I did. And I just paid the creators for brand deals. So I didn't tell them, let's start now a merchandise company for clothing brand for you. Because even if you have millions of views right now on social media, that doesn't mean that you sell. And why not getting fixed rate brands first rather than me investing in a brand, not sure if it's going to do well, not based on any information of previous products I sold with them. So at least if I can get them a price, a fixed price for a brand deal, they are happy. We can test the product out. We can understand what sells. And if we want to start a company together for a product, their personal product, then we can at least understand with experience through fixed payments what works or not. And creators loved it. I didn't came up with a sales pitch of I can give you a CPM deal, a price on every view that you get. No, I give you fixed price with legit clients, and that's it. And they loved it.
So this is great. So you have 2 customers, and you've talked a lot about your influencer customer, which is great. What about your brand customer? How did you get inside their head? So as you said, you had this kind of secret superpower that you were the same age as the creators and the influencers you're trying to work with. You like the same things. But talking about major brands, Coca-Cola, Google, whatever, they can be very different from you. So how did you can you give us an example of something you did to get inside the brand head to ultimately sell those deals to get the influencers?
One of the first big deals that we did was for a company called CapCut, which is an editing tool by TikTok. And I was sitting with the whole marketing team, and I'm at that age quite young. And one thing I understood always is to ask what they want rather than to talk about what I want. And the problem with a lot of content creators is they are really good in creating content, but being a good content creator doesn't mean that you're a good businessman. Let me explain. That you know how to get views doesn't mean that you know how to get conversion. And I always explained that to the client. And I did because I understood the business side behind YouTube and TikTok. So I always talked with the client on a professional level. And then they told me, you're quite young. I have CEA that I could work with. Why would I work with you? And I said, if you work with CAA and you work with the founder directly, work with them. If you don't, work with me. If the employee knows everything about the content creator from their side, every brand deal they worked with, every return they made on previous deals, work with them. If they don't, work with me. They said, I like it. Let's do first campaign. I did a first campaign. They spent some money, but instead of me doing one campaign, I gave them 2 campaigns. So they're like, wait, why does this guy give me? So I invested all the money back for the first campaign. And I did it for the second campaign as well, and the third campaign as well. So I got higher returns than every other agency because I had to go all in with this client. And that's what I did for the major clients. And then on a long-term partnership, I was able to take my return on it. But that's how I did. I reinvested everything in it. I had nothing to lose anyway. I only had to pay my student loan back. And really important that I want to share. I'm currently 28 years old. And the main mistake most people make is they want to get a girlfriend as soon as possible. They want to start a family as soon as possible. This is the time where you can take risks. This is the time that you can be selfish. This is the time that you can think about yourself. Use the time. If you're in your 20s or early 30s, this is the time to do it. Enjoy it. Because there is this quote as well from a guy that says, when I was in my 20s, I wanted to be a millionaire. And when I was in my 30s, I wanted to be in my 20s. I wanted both, and I got both. But I tell you one thing, I only got it, but I love what I'm doing. Every day, I'm not a workaholic. I love literally what I'm doing. And if I don't love what I'm doing, I'm stopping and I will lose money. But for me, the most important thing is the journey. And it really is. And I think that's that was the reason I was able to grow so quickly, because I really understand what I want and focus on the right energy. And I made my mistakes by focusing on the wrong creators, even big creators, but I knew there was no future. But you learn and you learn quick as well. But again, things take time to grow, and I'm still in this growth phase. I feel still that I just began, even if it was 5-6 years ago.
But let's talk about that, because you haven't just begun. We talked about you're a young guy, just a college loan on your own. You could take these risks. We talked earlier too. You've got a team of 25 now. So you said one of your lessons is you don't need 100 employees, but you have grown as a company. So what do you mean by that? You don't need 100 employees?
So it's better to have it's better to have really passionate people. Let me explain. So if you look at our competitors, there are 150, 200 employees. What I did, I love to travel remote, I love to work remote. So what I did, I used to go a lot to coffee shops, and I saw people working there, let's say from Mexico somewhere. And I would talk with the people, what are they doing? Oh, you work in finance, great. Or you just graduated. And I like to talk with people that just graduated. I gave them an internship for 6 months. They had to be passionate about YouTube. I asked them some questions if they knew about creators. They did. I work in a niche where a lot of people love to work with. Like it's attractive. You work with influencers, with social media artists. I work with, we did some campaigns for Justin Bieber when it comes to song promotions. It's you work with passionate people. So why not using that pitch rather than paying them a fixed salary? So everyone that works in my company did a 4 to 6 months internship, no matter the experience that you have. And 99% of the people will decline that. But the people that will accept it are people that are passionate about it. So all of our employees, what they do, I give them high commission, a lower fixed salary, and they work on performance and they love it. And that's not for everyone. But those are the people that I need. I don't want to micromanage. I don't want to come to the office and tell 100 people what to do. No, I don't want to have those fixed costs either. So my fixed costs are comparable, quite low. We work with high commissions, and I work with people that actually love what they're doing. And of course, there are some people that maybe do it for the money, but most of them don't. And that's where I was able to grow so quickly.
So you have this natural intuition to find a unique value proposition. That was a great example with recruiting employees. You mentioned before that value proposition was work with the founder, don't work with CAA, don't work with WME. You've grown now, as we talked about. You've got these employees now. We're working about 25 people. Have you had to pivot that value prop from work with the founder now?
No. So I understood always, funny enough, that when it comes to people, not a lot of people like to give compliments. Not a lot of people like to talk about other people. They always like to talk about myself. What I'm doing right now in a podcast, by the way. Daniel, so thank you for listening. But I'm always trying to understand, what does the other person want? For some people, it's money. For another one, it's traveling around the world. And for another person, it's working with this specific influencer. So you always have to understand, what do they want? And the moment you understand what they want, they give you what you want. So even when I was able to meet one of the ex-presidents that I got invited for in Colombia, I knew who he was, but it was not about me. I knew I wouldn't get invited to talk at his foundation in Colombia if I talked about me. I understood I had to ask questions about him, because everyone wants to impress themselves when they have that opportunity, but they never really talk about their children, their family. People always ask them about their work. But if you ask them, man, you're a great president, but for example, right? But man, family-wise, you did it so well. How did you do that? So I like to look up to people that are not only good business people, but everything what they do, being a good son, being a good husband, being a good father. That's the people I look up to. And those are the people that I work with as partners. And every one of my employees, I ask the right question. So instead of asking like, oh, what do you want to do? I also ask like, hey, how's your family? And a lot of people say, no, you can't do that. You cannot add the family side with the business side. No, you do, because family has a lot of influence on the person's work attitude as well. And, like I'm seeing it like kind of a family in a certain way. Like if I work with people and you work 9 hours of the day with this person, this is most of your day. How can you not understand how his personal life is doing?
Yeah, I will say to everyone listening, to Godon's credit, we do a lot of prep work for How I Made It in Marketing. 95, so we're talking a lot about, the guest's career and all the lessons they learned and that stuff. 95% of the guests never ask about me, which is fine. But Godon did. We went. I think I talked about myself as much as we talked about him. But let's brag about some other people now. We did not just talk about you. That's what we do in the second half of the episode. We talk about people you collaborated with. But first, I should mention that the How I Made It in Marketing podcast is underwritten by MechLabs AI, the parent company of Marketing Sherpa. You can get conversion-focused training from the lab that helped pioneer the conversion industry in our AI Guild and a community to collaborate with. Grab your free 3-month scholarship to the AI Guild at join.mechlabsai.com. That's join.mechlabsai.com. Get artificial intelligence working for you. All right. Let's talk about some other people now. You mentioned Thomas Petru, and you said from Thomas you learned that entrepreneurship does not have an age.
He was the founder of the Hype House that I then managed. And this is literally this kid of 21 years old that started one of the first most successful influencer houses with Charlie D'Amelio, Alex Warren, all the big people on it. They're also on Netflix right now. And I spent quite some time with him because this guy, maybe at the time he was even 19. I think I was 23, 24. And that guy took huge risks. Again, starting an influencer house and creating content there, it was genius at that time. It didn't work long term, but that guy took a lot of risks. And then I understood, wait, it's just a certain mentality that you have, that you need to have in order to start something. You don't necessarily have to go to college and a degree, depending on what you want to study, in order to start a business. When I told my classmates that I wanted to start a company, they all thought I was crazy. I'm a little bit crazy, by the way, Danielle, but I thought they were crazy that I want to spend 9 to 5 for someone else. But what I really understood is that I had to go to college because I felt I wasn't ready yet, which the way I grew up as well, not a religious, but a traditional Jewish family. So for me, I was teach that education was important. Now I understand I could have done it as well without. I'm happy that I did it, but there's no age for entrepreneurship.
So I like that and I agree, but at How I Made It Marketing, we always like to unpack things, take a look at the other side. So do you have any specific examples of how experience has helped in your career? Because for example, when I interviewed Cordula Flugel, the marketing director at TNW, on How I Made It Marketing, one of her lessons was working in various industries and for different brands and products from D2C to B2P makes you a better and more versatile marketer overall. And so I hear you. There is no age for entrepreneurship. Mark Zuckerberg was 19. Even Evan Spiegel was 21. There's a long list. But earlier you talked about, I made these mistakes. I learned these lessons. And so I got to think there's something from that experience that now you at 28 are maybe more effective than you at 21. What was something you learned from that experience?
Well, the first thing is I am someone that needs to learn from experience. I need to learn from my mistakes. I'm a really stubborn person. So it's also the personality type that I am. I learned accountant and finance in my college degree. And I tell you, I didn't even know how to send an invoice when I had my first client. So that you don't learn that. Now for accountant, I have a whole team that does my accountant from the company. Well, it's good to know certain few things. But because I'm such a stubborn person, there are entrepreneurs that need to work for a company first. And then what they learn, they apply to their business. So for me, that wouldn't work because I'm too impatient and I'm too risky to say. I made a lot of mistakes. I think I'm a lot more grown up right now than I was before. I think now twice before I say yes. Part of the risk that I took, I wouldn't definitely not take again. Not only on the business side, on any side. I was Mr. Yes Man. I'm still Mr. Yes Man, but on a less frequent way. So yeah, I learned a lot of things. That is more confidence. I think part of saying all the time yes is not the greatest thing to do. So I think with experience comes confidence, even more confidence. And with confidence comes less mistake. Some of the mistakes that I made was focusing still on small creators because I didn't want to miss out on the small deals. And now I understand, let's really focus on the bigger deals because then you grow quicker as well. I'm more trusty with other people. I allocate more work, so I have more freedom to work on other projects. And I'm trying multiple businesses out besides the agency. So, at the moment, you always also need to grow as a person. And for me, the growth as a person is more important than the growth only on the business side. So in order to also take risks with other businesses, you really have to learn how a business works. And it teaches me a lot. All these experiences, all the failures that I made as well. Clients that I lost, creators that I lost. It's part of the business.
How do you make sure you've got your finger on the pulse of what's new and next and upcoming now? Because you talk a lot about, okay, I want to work with the big deals. I don't want to work with the small deals. But I would think a key with a talent agent is always kind of finding that up and coming next talent before anyone else does. Because in marketing, we got to do the same thing, right? We're like, should I invest in that new channel when Vine came out, right? Should we invest in that or should we not? Is it not worth it, right? AI, all this stuff. So I know you're kind of looking for those home runs and grand slams, and that's great. But do you do anything to try to find the new and the next and the upcoming, either in a channel or in an individual?
Really good question. I do this on a daily basis. I give you an example with a platform and I give you an example with a creator. So some clients are there for the long term. Let's say Raid Shadow Legends. They're sponsoring creators years, right? But then there are clients that are only sponsoring certain creators once a year or a few times, and then it's done. When TikTok came out and when I worked with ByteDance, I did a lot of collaborations on TikTok. But then so many creators got so many views. Like an average consumer of TikTok scrolls in 1 hour through 100 creators. So most of the brands that are sponsoring those creators, they don't get an ROI because the consumer doesn't even go to their link in bio. They don't even come to their profile. They just see them on the in feed, part. When it comes to YouTube, they're watching one YouTube creator at the time, long format content, and the tracking link is in their bio. So there's there's a more likelihood that the brand will sell their products. So then I had to go over from TikTok because I didn't see a future for the brands in TikTok, and the creators would go too quick. They would come and go too quick. So I took the brands to the YouTube platform. That was the first adaptation that I made. Then TikTok didn't do so well anymore with brands. Well, what happened then? YouTube introduced YouTube Shorts. So now I had a new client. Instead of working only with TikTok, I had Google as a client as well. So now we work a lot with Google. Now I had a new platform where there was more brand awareness for the clients. The clients were happier. They saw more return. And now I had to understand, rather than focusing on the creators that just get a lot of views, let me focus on creators that are a long time on YouTube already, 7 to 8 years, right? They have a certain relationship already with their audience, so it sells better. And that's what I did as well. And I'm always trying to find who's the new big creator. Who's the next Mr. Beast? Well, that's part of your job. Who is the next big client? Every time I have to look on YouTube, who is currently sponsoring? Then I have to find what is the new next live streaming platform, such as Twitch, that maybe wants me to put their YouTube creators on their platform, right? So I'm always, what is the next fanfics, which was started by one of my friends? What is the next Patreon? And, because you also miss a lot of opportunities. So that's what I'm trying to do as well. What is the next big platform? So yeah, you always have to adapt.
Yeah. So speaking of that ephemeral nature, you said one of the things you learned was influencers come and go, and you learned this from Cameron Dallas. You said so. How did you learn this?
Because Cameron Dallas was one of the biggest creators, including he started on Vine, and I used to manage him a while. Together with Logan Paul and Jake Paul. Look at Logan Paul and Jake Paul. They were literally, maybe Cameron Dallas was one of the first influencers. 26 million followers. Now brands are not working anymore. Most brands are not working anymore on his channel, even though he has 26 million followers, because it goes too quick. The moment you're not adapting to the new social media channels, it's done. It's done. You're losing out on 1 year, it's done. And that's what you see. Like, he was one of the biggest creators, but now compare him to Logan Paul and Jake Paul. Most people will know him by his name, but it's definitely not the same as those creators anymore. If you don't, go ahead.
No, sorry, I interrupted you.
If you don't stick to it and you lose momentum, it's done. You always need to be innovative. Look at Jake Paul, became a boxer. Look at Logan Paul, he became a part of WME. If you're not adapting, it's done. If you stick on YouTube and nothing else is going from there, you're losing. That's what the business is also. If you're not growing, you're declining. There's no stability. It's either growth or decline. One of them.
Yeah, and I especially here on the influencer side, but something for the brand marketers that are listening, like, do you have any examples of how to build long-term success between a brand and influencers? Because I'll tell you one case study I wrote real quick. I was with Vibe Israel, and they're a nonprofit that's Israel's marketing and branding, essentially. And they launched an influencer campaign to get influencers. But they said a real key thing of the campaign was, they weren't trying to like showcase the place or anything like that. What they were really focused on was fostering long-term connections and friendships between people, right? They were trying to just build those relationships. That's what they wanted to do to get that long-term. And then they got, 10 million followers at less than a nickel person they reached and all that stuff. So for you, you've talked a lot about this ephemeral and short-term nature, but for a brand, how can they then take a long-term successful campaign? Do you have any examples of that, of using influencers for a long-term successful campaign?
While you talk about Israel, so let's talk about an Israeli company called Wix.com. So Wix.com reached out to me because they are a partner of Manchester City. And Manchester City gives their partners an opportunity once a year to work a few hours with their football players. So all the big clients that Manchester City had, the whole year they think about the concept, what they're going to do. So I told Wix, let's be smart. We're going to have the opportunity to be on social media. Wix.com is promoting themselves through social media. Why don't we use one of the biggest YouTube creators that get a lot of views and not only work with the football players, but add another famous person in it? Because what is a football player right now? You have creators that are more famous on social media than the football players. That's insane. So why don't we merge both together? So what we did with Wix.com is we took Haaland, which is the Manchester City biggest players, and two other players, including Phil Foden, together with my creator called How Ridiculous, to collaborate on a campaign. That campaign got 200 million organic views. We didn't pay for it. Organic views. How? Because the creator gets millions of views. Now they have Haaland in it. They get even more views. Manchester City Instagram page get a lot of views because of the football creators. But now the famous YouTubers in it, in the video as well, it gets even more views. So what I want to say is like this example. What does it show? As a client, you have to understand how to work with something. Let's say you're Wix.com, you're a website builder. You need to work with creators that have their own website and sell their merchandise, right? You have to understand your niche. If you are a CapCut and you want to promote your app, you need to work with creators that make their own videos, right? Edit their own videos. Understand your niche. Understand how long is the creator in that site. Don't only look at views, but you need to work with a creator that's quite some time already in the industry because then they have a name. And creative freedom. This is an opportunity for you as a brand to create a story. Everything is storytelling. We know that as marketeers, everything is storytelling. But you as a brand have to understand that rather than you coming up with a brief of what to do, come up with your talking points, what needs to be said, but let the creator decide what to do because the audience is buying your product because of the creator, not because of your product. And that's what really clients have to understand. And the clients that understand, the brands that understand that, those are the brands that get a positive ROI and results out of social media. Because just working with Mr. Beast or another big creator doesn't guarantee results. You have to understand who the creator is and what is their brand that they are showing to their audience, because that's the brand that your product will have. It's not your brand values. It's the creator you're working with that communicates your brand values. So whatever their content is what your product is.
Are brands coming along on the creative freedom train? Because for a long time, obviously, it was brands and agencies. Brands told agencies what to do. Agencies were the creators, essentially, right? Advertising agencies. The brand just told them what to do. Then influencers is pretty new, and brands still want a lot of control. But has that changed some now? Has that pivoted?
Yeah, definitely. At least for me, and that's what I said at the beginning, Daniel. Like the bigger creators and the bigger brands that sponsor a lot on YouTube, they know how to get results, so they understand creative freedom. And that's the ease that I have right now. Smaller brands wouldn't do that. And smaller brands can spend still a lot of money, but there is no long-term vision with them.
That is very ironic because in other things, traditionally in marketing and business, smaller brands were the challenger brands, right? Pepsi would do something Coke couldn't do because they had to get attention. So that's very ironic and good to hear for the big brands.
And that's not at all the case right now. When I work with Coca-Cola, there's less creative freedom than I work with, It's funny because there's a few big traditional brands, right, that are like that. But the new big brands on social media, right, such as the Googles, such as the CapCuts, the Bidens, LG, Samsung that we work with a lot, they do give creative freedom. But when it comes to traditional big brands, it's less, definitely.
All right, one more lesson here. You said, don't let small setbacks in the business distract you from your insane vision. And you learned this from James Lin. So how did you learn this from James? So
he has a company called Crunchyroll. It's one of the biggest anime live streaming platforms, which you can have, which you can see anywhere. It's basically when you open your Apple TV, you see it. Well, I learned a lot from him because I started an online community for Forbes 30 under 30 with him. And he's a little bit older. He's in his 40s. I'm not sure exactly how old he is now, but it's not only about, it's about experience, what you said. And well, he sold his company to Sony for what is it, 1 point something billion with his co-founders. And every small setback would really, it would hurt because it's my baby. And then he said, man, if you are going to be, such a big businessman, why would you care about those small setbacks? If we have that $1 billion vision, why would you care about losing that few $100,000, which was a lot for me, and it still is, and it should be. But if you have that big vision, right, then you need to get there. For example, Richard Branson with his, he had also like a competitor of Coca-Cola. I cannot imagine how much money he would lose there. But again, look at him right now with his cruise ships, with his airlines. It's unbelievable. And that's what I think as well. It started with an agency. This is my first business, but this is not what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I love the entertainment world and I want to grow bigger. We just recently, me and my co-founder got into the production of movies. So helping to raise money as well for movies. It's amazing. Like, you need to have a big mindset, not only social media. And that's what I love about this guy, because he teach me, like, you aim for the moon, and I am.
So I love that. When we see over and over in businesses, sometimes those small setbacks fuel something bigger. So I wonder, do you have any examples of how you're able to turn those setbacks into a win eventually? Because when I interviewed Gary Stein, the CMO of Virtuo, on How I Made It in Marketing, one of his lessons was always ask, what can we do with this, right? It's always that mindset is there's value in everything. There's value when we get a win. There's value when we get a loss. We see that in A/B testing. So I wonder, have you ever been able to take one of those small setbacks? Maybe you didn't win that time, but there's some intelligence that you learned there and turn it into something else?
Well, the beautiful thing is I think you always win, but you need to look at more in the long term.
There you go.
Not in the short term. And then you understand that, well, you as a business person, you lose deals and you win deals. I just lost a $100,000 plus brand deal. And then the first thing is like, man, damn, because your mindset is I already had that. You never had that. You don't own anything. You learn that the happier you are is understanding the mindset that everything that you have in this life, maybe it sounds sad what I'm going to say, but it's actually positive. Everything in this life is temporary. The house that you think you own is temporary. When you die, it's not your house. Well, who is the house right now? That car that you bought, even that Ferrari, is temporary. Everything is temporary. So be happy with what you have right now, right? So if I lose that deal, the vision is don't be in the past. Live in the future, or live in the present or in the future. That brand deal is passé. You already lost it. Move on. So what it teaches me is that now I lose $100,000 brand deal, but I'm going to go at a level where I will lose $1 million brand deal. And then I will go to a level where I will lose a $10 million revenue. Well, money, it comes and goes. It's the way it is. It's the industry. So it prepares me to lose the higher big brands. And then I would laugh and I lost 100,000 opportunity. Well, it is what it is.
I like that attitude. All right. Well, if you had to break it down, Gideon, what are the key qualities of an effective marketer?
Confidence. You need to be confident enough in yourself to believe in what you're doing, believe in yourself, because so many people will tell you that you're wrong. But as a marketing guy, you need to be innovative. You need to think different. You need to listen to other people as well, especially when you have a team. So even though you need to be confident about your own opinion, listen to other people. You need to have a vision, super important. Vision is the thing that leads the marketing goals. And then you need to be extremely creative as well. I wouldn't say I'm an artist as well. I think where if I would lack a point, maybe it's creativity. But then at the end of the day, I just go for a walk and something creative comes on. I will always say I'm the engine of the car. My co-founder and then my team, they are the steer wheel. They will go to the right direction. So I will come with a new brand. I will come with a new concept, and they will put it into the details. So you have to understand that you don't have to be good in everything as a marketer either. You need to be good in one particular thing. For me, it's being the engine, starting it off. And then you have a team or a co-founder or potentially someone else that can help you. But if you're starting, you need to be everything. Don't understand me wrong, right? And then you need to be just confident enough that your marketing perception is good enough, which it is. Otherwise, you wouldn't be there.
That's right. Well, thank you so much for sharing all your lessons and stories with us, Gideon.
No, thank you so much for having me on. Amazing podcast.
Great. And thanks to everyone for listening.
Thank you for joining us for How I Made It in Marketing with Daniel Burstein. Now that you've gotten inspiration for transforming yourself as a marketer, get some ideas for your next marketing campaign from Marketing Sherpa's extensive library of free case studies at marketingsherpa.com. That's marketing, SHERPA.com.